right, මම දැන් මේ ඇවිල්ලා ඉන්නේ මේ Whakarewarewa කියන thermal village එකට. ඉතින් මේක ඇවිල්ලා මේ thermal මේ වෙනම area එකක්. ඒත් එක්කම මේකේ තියෙනවා මේ Maori village එකකුත්. ඉතින් මේක experience එක ගන්න තමයි මම ආවේ. ඉස්සෙල්ලා ගිහලා බලමු කොහොමද මේ ටිකට් එක ටිකට් එක ඔන්ලයින් බුක් කරා. ඉතින් මේක තියෙනවා living Maori village and thermal exploration. Hey, morning. Hi. I already have purchased the ticket. Yep. It's 12 o'clock.
Yep. It's this one that we've got. So we've got that. Cool.
Awesome.
Give you one of these.
Yes.
Pop it onto your jacket.
Yep.
And your guided tour will start from just at the front here very
Awesome.
shortly.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You'll keep the ticket, right?
Oh, you can.
Oh,
You can. Yeah,
okay.
I've got your booking here.
Alright. Gonna sticker එකක්. මේකයිලා guided tour එකක්. Right. ගහගන්න තියෙන්නේ. බලමු guide දෙනවා කියලා කිව්වා 12ට මගන් ඉඳලා බලමු.
Kei te katoa, nau mai haramai, ki te whakarewarewa tanga o te ope taua wāhi ao. Welcome to our village. Te whakarewarewa tanga o te ope taua wāhi ao. Not the longest place name in the country. The longest place name in the country has 85 letters. And that's in the Hawke's Bay area, Napier Hastings. Now the last 6 letters, wāhi ao, that is the name of a chief. So translation, the uprising war party of the chief wāhi ao. This is the southern boundaries to Lake Rotorua. Whenever enemy arrived unannounced, wāhi ao gathered his war party. 400 to 500 warriors performing the haka pirupiru. So with the men stamping their feet on the ground, not only did it sound like it was rumbling, from the stamping the dust rose like the steam. That's how the village got its name. For the families that reside in the village, up to 20 families live in the village. I do not live in the village, but I am associated to the families living in the village. We shorten the name to 13 letters. So repeating after me, fa, ka, rewa, rewa, whakarewarewa. That's how they know where they're from when you say they're from Whakarewarewa. But for the people of the city of Rotorua, they shorten the name to 5 letters. Now repeat after me, waka. Isn't that much easier? Now, the Māori language only consists of 15 letters of the alphabet. 5 of those letters, the vowel letters, the consonants, H, K, M, N, P, R. We roll the R's, and TW, they sit in between the vowel letters. We also have 2 sets of consonants that sit together, what they call a digraph, 2 letters making one sound. WH, pronounced in the English language PH. F is 1 letter we do not have in our language. The other set, NG. So when we teach our children the letters of the language, it comprises a song, just like the alphabet. But starting with the first vowel letter, A. Those consonants, H, K, haka. Then E, heke, I, hiki, or hoko, u, uku. Then you add the tune. Aha ko mana para tawanga wha e. He ke mene pere te winge whe I. He ki mene pere ti winge whi o. Ho ko mono poro tōngo who a e I o u. Uhu kumunu puru tuingu fu. And that's children singing. Now repeat after me. Te, wha, ka, rewa, tanga, ote, ope, taua, wahiao. There you go, you just said the name of the village. Now I'm taking you through the village, giving a commentary on the history, how the families utilised the resources. If you have any questions, my name is Paora Rangatihi e Waringapu Manawa o Te Arawa. Oh, so you won't be getting a slushie. You can call me Chief.
Chief.
How do you spell it?
Have you got Google? Now folks, there is no restrictions on the use of photography video cameras. So we're going to start this way. Now here we have the profiles of the guides of yesteryear. We have many guides. Out of the many guides, only a few were selected. 2010 we celebrated the centennial of the guiding legacy. The legacy did not begin at the village. Now 20 kilometres east of us, a mountain we call Whakarewarewa. At the southern base of the mountain stood the 8th natural wonder of the world, the pink and white terraces, and this was the birthplace of tourism. They were two separate terraces, one white, the other pink. But on June the 10th, 1886, Mount Whakarewarewa erupted, destroying the pink and white terraces. Also, here are the names of the settlements that were under that mountain when it erupted. This was the only village that survived, known today the Buried Village. The survivors we acknowledge, the Tūhaurangi people. Some of them were then relocated to the geothermal reserve, living amongst the families of the chief Wahiao. One of those survivors, this lady, Mary Sophia Gray, Guide Sophia. She was the principal guide at the pink and white terraces when she came to the village, bringing to the woman her skills, expertise in tourism. Now one of the ladies that came under her wing, Makariti Papakura, but because people had a hard time pronouncing her Māori name, she said just call me Maggie. Now she was the guide during the 1901 royal visit, the Duke and Duchess of Cornwall and York. Along with another famous guide, Rangi, they were invited to the coronation when he became King George V in 1911. Now Maggie was one of the first Māori women to study at Oxford University. Unfortunately, before she completed her final thesis, she died. Now another famous Gairangi Tiaria, Gairangi, who happened to be the guide during the former First Lady's visit, Eleanor Roosevelt. She was instructed, you're not to touch the First Lady. Our protocols state we performed the hongi, so she had no choice but to touch her. It caused an uproar amongst the international media following the former First Lady. Then during the 1954 royal visit, Queen Elizabeth, Prince Philip, when they came to the valley, she brought them through the valley. Now the lady on the end, Dorothy Huhana Mihinui, Guide Bubbles, 1936, at the age of 17, when she started her apprenticeship as a guide in the valley, under the leadership of Maggie's twin sister, Bella. Then 2 years later, she was awarded her certificate by the Government Tourist Bureau to be a guide in the valley. Then in 2002, she was awarded her MBE. She was also the Public Relations Officer and the Senior Guide at the New Zealand Maori Arts and Crafts Institute, known today to Puia, which is on the other side of the valley. Then after 46 years walking through the valley, she retired, like my grandmother, who still lives in the village. So the next generation continues their legacies, showing visitors through our home. So hopefully, when we have our next centennial, my profile, it better be in colour. Now our entranceway. This is our War Memorial Archway, commemorating the men of the village who served in World War I, World War II. The inscriptions, Te Hokowhitua 2, the fighting regiment of 2. 2 is a guardian, 2 mātauinga, the guardian of war. Now they're also known as penny divers. Before the bridges, my ancestors carried the visitors across stepping stones for a penny. After the building of the first bridge in 1885, the visitors saw the children swimming in the river, started tossing coins to them, and that's how they became known as penny divers. My generation, 1 cent, 2 cent, 5 cent coins, because the gold coins were still notes when I was jumping from the bridge. Now today, the children are known as gold coin divers. Now if they ever convert the $5 note into a coin, I might consider returning back to the river. Because during the busy season, our children were making a lot of money in that river, to the point they were buying the flashiest cell phones, not the $100, $200 phones, the $1,000, $1,500 phones, because that's how much money they were making in that river. On this side of our archway, the inscriptions Kia Mau Mahara, in memory of, talking about the men of the village listed under the archway. Now we're just going to move to the side, folks, because all of a sudden a resident wants to come through. They always seem to pick it when we get everybody on the bridge. Oh, for me. I know who she's coming to see. Now, this is the only cold water running through the whole valley. Te Puaringa, floating blossom. It's the sulphur deposits that run into the river. Now you can see, coming down the river, floating like blossoms. As soon as we cross the bridge, we are going to enter into a landscape of bubbling mud, steam vents, hot springs, geysers, at a temperature of 100 degrees Celsius. So don't go putting fingers in the steam vents. The village is located on fault lines coming from New Zealand's active volcano we call Whakarewarewa White Island, 85 kilometres east of us. Running from that island, the fault lines, all the way to 3 mountains on the southern tip of New Zealand's largest lake, what is known as the Taupo volcanic zone. Now in the valley we had up to 35 active geysers. After they surveyed the fault lines, they estimated 1,500 active geysers. Now because we're on fault lines, we get occasional movements. So the houses in the village, they're on solid rock. But 2006, the family living in this house had to move. The ground opened up underneath it. I'm just coming across the bridge.
Okay, thank you. Sending them now.
Even this platform here, folks, once stood a house. Just going down the road here was a row of houses. Wow. You can see that in this photo right here. Even our dining room, or wharekai, was in the village, now stands in the car park. So Mother Nature, she dictates the terms, we adapt. So what I'm going to share with you is how the families utilise the resources. Even though our homes have kitchens, bathrooms, they prefer to utilise the resources. We do not generate thermal into the homes, not even for heating. Now these are the types of houses our people built after the arrival to the country. We never had tools to cut the trees, so they seeked out the next resource, ka punga, New Zealand tree fern. Wharipuni, sleeping house. Women and children slept inside, men under the shelter. Now we liken the village to a home. We've walked through the front entrance, the roadway, the corridor, the houses, the rooms. We have 2 bathing areas, one private, what the residents utilise when we're open to the public. We walk through the communal bathing area. In front of you, the kitchen where they do their cooking, and to your left where the carved house is located, the living room where we gather for ceremony occasions. Now inhale, exhale. Take in the wondrous smells we do every day. The only time the city gets to smell the sulphur when we have cloud cover. It traps it. Whereas the most highly concentrated area in the city for the sulphur smells, the Polynesian spa pools, the Rotorua Museum. Very highly concentrated in sulphur. Here in the valley, the pH levels are neutral, and that's why we're able to live here. If all the pools were sulphuric, we would not choose this place to live in. Now as we continue along, I'm just in the Rahui now. So now I have 20 people with me. Now ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to explain 2 methods we still utilise the thermal for cooking in. This is one of them. So just repeating after me, Maori.
Maori.
Microwave.
No, that's not cold. I won't send any more on. There's another 5, so you should have 23.
Kapai. You can practically cook anything inside the boxes. The steam does not taint the flavouring of the food. It's a healthy, economical way of cooking. 4 to 5 families can share a box because we have 4 boxes dotted throughout the area. If you pack it properly, you can feed up to 200 people. Now traditionally we will cook with flax woven baskets. Today pots and pans, but if you want to avoid doing dishes, aluminium foil muslin cloths. And the longer you leave the meats in the boxes, the more tenderized the meat becomes. It's like a slow cooker. That's why we love winter. Casseroles, stews, soups, boil-ups. Sting puddings, my favourite, caramelised sugar. The children's, chocolate. Our grandparents, sultanas dates. Now some days you can remove the lids, a pig's head is looking at you. Somebody's cooking brawn, and that's what's so good about the thermal. It separates the meat from the bone. So when you shake the head, the meat falls, you mince it in onion, set it in its own fat. The next day, a packet of crackers, a glass of wine. Well, in most cases, the bottle. Now, the second method we utilise the thermal for cooking in, the heart of the village, the cooking pool. Te ohakitanga o te iwi e, the life source of our people. There is the name of the pool, Whare ko huru. whare to ripple, which is the rippling effects in the water, kōhuru to murder, rippling murderous waters. We nicknamed the pool Champagne because of the pressure. When the pressure builds, the water rises. When it drops, bubbles rise to the surface, resembling the champagne. There you go folks, have a facial.
Can I steam in a heady? Oh, වතුර ඇතුලේ පාට නිල් පාට.
Now mostly vegetables are cooked in the pool, never meats. The fat content of the meat contaminates the water. Corn, 10 minutes. Cabbage, 2 to 3 minutes. Broccoli, carrots, cauliflower, 3 to 4 minutes. Eggs, soft, 6. Hard, a little longer. Crayfish, lobsters, 5 to 7 minutes. Then into ice water. Shellfish, 30 seconds. Placing your contents into cheesecloth bags, tie it to a rope. No bottom. Our geologists, they put cable in the pool measuring temperature depth. Surface 96 to 100 degrees Celsius. The further down 285 degrees Celsius. They ran out of cable at 50 feet, realizing the pool opens up as an underground cavern. When the pressure builds, the water rises, channeling that volume of water through the outlets to our communal baths. Once the pressure drops, 45 minutes to an hour before the pressure rises again, continuing the cycle 24 times a day. This is what they call a failed geyser. Now, we've never had an incident of anybody falling into the pool, even before the barriers went up. Children are not allowed near the pool. Enjoying your facials? It is. Now folks, you're going to sample the corn that's been cooking in the pool. You can see right over here. Now because it was the last minute dash for putting corn in, what we are going to do is do the circuit in this area first, going into the bathing area and then to the first lookout point of the geysers and then back in here, and then we'll get to sample the corn cooking in the pool. Just in front of our folks, the yellow is sulphur, the orange, brown, copper, iron, the pink, cinnabar, and those are the minerals of the pink terraces. Now as we enter into the bathing area, there are grooves in the concrete. Just be mindful of those grooves. This is how we channel the water into the baths. Now if you want to feel the water folks, it's a lot easier to come down here, or even down that one, reach in, run your hand into the water. Now it is a bit hot for the children.
It's hot.
Okay. And get to feel the texture of the water folks. You can feel the oiliness in the water, but when your hand dries, it'll have a silky feeling on the skin. For the children, it's a lot easier if they just put their finger in the channel.
You want to come touch it, right?
Or come down this bath here, folks, to reach into the bath. So it's lost half of its temperature by the time it gets here. So it's about 45 to 48 degrees Celsius. Like you, when you're at home bathing, we too bathe with no clothes on. That's how we can tell strangers are sitting in the baths. We use soap, shampoo, conditioners. After the bath, do not smell of sulphur. They have therapeutic qualities. Villagers with sore muscles, aching joints, feeling cold. By the time they hop out of the bath, a lot warmer and soothing. They're cleaned every day. After the morning bathers, cloths are removed from the corners, baths are emptied, cleaned. And then around about 2 o'clock this afternoon, a family member is going to come along, plugging up the holes, slowly refilling the baths. So around about 5, 6 o'clock this evening, when the families arrive and hop into them. It's a golden rule, last one out pulls the plug. So we're not bathing in everybody's water. We have a fresh, clean, running bath all the time. I am one of many regular morning bathers. Not only is it a great way to start the day, you're watching the sky getting lighter. Evening, sunset. Nighttime, milky galaxy. But constant supply of hot water coming from Papakura. You can hear the river. And when families are bathing, all you hear is talking, singing. If you arrive, it comes to a silence. They're talking about you. Now, when your hand dries, folks, you'll feel the silkiness, at least on that skin, so you can imagine what it's like having the whole body submerged in the bath. Now, ladies and children, they get undressed in the changing shed, wrapping a towel around them before they get into the bath. Gentlemen, we get undressed out here. We only have one thing to cover. Who's that? Me, Nan. Oh, you're like your grandfather. Really? Fig. Hey, baby. Now, folks, as I had mentioned earlier, we had up to 35 active geysers in the valley. Just in this area, all the way to that fence line, was a cluster of active geysers. It wasn't until the mid-60s, early 70s when our people noticed a decline in the activity because of the commercial boring of the thermal, especially the hotels, motels. So a buffer zone went up from our geysers all the way to the lake's edge. Anybody within that radius had to have their bores capped. So you could only imagine the activity that would have been going on in this area. Now this pool here, Waipuru, which means to immerse. This was the pool, there's also a question on their paper. This is the pool that our people used to wash our nappies, because we had cloth nappies, not the disposable ones. Now also another question for Puri Rehua. All the answers is on this information board here. Now as we start making our way up to the lookout point, we have 3 active geysers on the terrace. When the water and steam rise from the front of the terrace, kereru, wood pigeon. on top of the geyser terrace is the location of 2 active geysers. When they are erupting, to the right we call Prince of Wales feathers. We used to call te tohu, indicator, because when that geyser reached a height of 7 meters, the water, the steam split into a V. When that happened, just to the left of him is the location of our famous geyser Pupu would erupt. But after the royal visit in 1901, they likened the split in the water and steam to the plume of feathers he wears on his coat of arms. Now when the Prince of Wales of Feathers erupts, to the left of him, Pupu, the big splash. When Pupu goes to full eruption, it can reach up to 30 meters. They used to erupt every 45 minutes to 90 minutes, right up until 2001. After a volcanic eruption that set off a chain reaction along the tectonic plates. The name of that volcano, Mount Etna. Now Mount Etna sits on the Arabian Belt, connecting to the Pacific Belt, exiting at the Philippines. New Zealand, the plug hole of the Pacific Belt, White Island. Whenever there's movement in the tectonic plates, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, we get the signs. Since Mount Etna's eruption in 2001, the geysers became active. So instead of 1 eruption, that's when you would get a full eruption, but only 10 minutes. Then no activity for the next 45 minutes to 90 minutes. We now get 4-5 eruptions within the hour. On some occasions, they will play continuously throughout the day. So we very rarely get to see a full eruption. Now, even though there's no activity going on up there at the moment, folks, if we were back to the 45 minutes, 90 minutes, we would not even get the steam. We'll be looking straight at a terrace. Now, to give you a perspective of how wide the fault line is, the village is on top of. We're at the bottleneck of the fault line. So the embankment to your right, one edge of the fault line, extending across our valley towards the forestry, and we're on top of it. So if White Island ever had a level 5 eruption, we have 12 to 14 minutes to get out of the valley. So if White Island did have a level 5 eruption, you see me running, you better be behind me. I don't want to hear while I'm running off in that direction. Oh look, full eruption. Wow. Where did the guide go to?
What happened when Whakare erupted the last time?
With the tourists?
Yeah.
Nothing. Well, we didn't feel any effects. It didn't even register. The scientist said it was just a cough. And yet 20 people lost their lives. They said at level 1 there would have been no survivors. Yes. Now, we're going to be passing Koro Tio Tio, grumpy old man. This pool is above boiling point. Good if you suffer from allergies, sinuses, hay fever, because of the intensity of the heat and steam. When inhaling it, clearing nasal passages. So inhale through the nostrils, exhale through the mouth. At the same time, have a facial, and he does steam up glasses, camera lenses. Now with this pool, we used to drop poultry, turkey, duck, pheasant in 2, 3, 4, 5 out. Easier to remove feathers. If you made boiled dessert, wonderful pool to cook from. A 5 kilogram of rice, 5 minutes. Now even the vegetation you see growing in the valley here, folks, is what they call microflora. Because the roots, as you can see, they grow along the surface and not down into the ground. Where if you go outside of the geo to the boundary, same part, flora and fauna. Because if he was boiling, we'll be standing here. It's starting to boil now.
පේනද බොයිලිං එක කිලෝ 5ක හාල් ගෝනියක් විනාඩි 5න් බොයිල් කරලා ගන්න පුළුවන්.
on this side, folks, you can actually see the bottom of the pole.
That's it. Oh yeah.
What did I say? Come on, yeah.
Wow. Isn't that crazy?
That's like
That's why they are saying the 8th natural wonder of the world, because they still have a place.
Someone doesn't like eggs. They just stand there for an hour a day for a week or two and then they don't like eggs. Yeah. Yeah.
Have they measured the temperature there at the boiling point?
Of
Yeah.
CO2, yes. That's how we get all that information
Yeah.
from our GNS.
Oh, okay.
Now, as I have mentioned earlier, folks, we do not generate thermal into the homes. So we're now coming up to the outlets where the families bring their buckets, filling them, taking them home to do their dishes. It's also where we bring the children to teach them how to cook from the thermal. Because we're surrounded by fresh wooded lakes, the first thing our children learn to cook, the freshwater crayfish. Because all you need is a big branch of the honey plant and a torch. When you get into the lake, you only go waist deep, drop your branch in, shine the torch above. They're attracted to the light. 10 minutes later, pull your branch up, you've got over a dozen of them caught up in the branches. Then back here, 5 minutes in the water, there's a meal. The best time to go on a moonless night. Don't go when the moon is up in the sky, they vanish. And you should be like what our grandparents did to us when we were young children, because you're going to get a big bucket of them, you need to take about 5 or 6 children with you. They hold the branches and the torches, you hold the buckets. And be like what our grandfather did to us, because me and my cousins, we got up to our waist, dropped our branches and shining a torch. All we heard behind us, no, too shallow, move forward. Move forward, okay. Keep going. Keep going. Before we knew it, the water was up to our nipples. And we looked at our grandfather and said, you said up to our waistline. And he goes, my waistline. Now we're going to sample the corn cooking in the pool. I think that was hot at the baths. That's the bottom.
Does it burn you?
Yes. Well, not here, but if you fell in the pool, yes. And we won't come in after you. I will might throw a rope.
It smells like I just smelled cooked corn.
Now we've got butter, got salt, got napkins, and then just head over to the seated area there, folks. Sit down eating the corn. Once you've eaten, we'll continue with the tour.
Okay.
There's So stay the lake for sparkling and it's beautiful. Yeah. I've only been in there for 2-3 minutes.
Yeah.
So here you go, start helping yourself. And then all the butter and salt napkins are here. Grab you a napkin too. And hang on, I'll just throw the napkins over there.
Thank you.
Nana, get some for Dad.
ඉතින් මේ අර තර්මල් පූල් එකේ තඹපු බඩේරිඟු තමයි මේ කෑවේ. එහෙනම් නියමයි ආයේ ජීවිතේට ඒ වගේ බඩේරිඟු කෑල්ලක් කාලා නැහැ. පුදුම රසක් තියෙන්නේ. ඒක මොකයි දන්නේ නැහැ. එහෙම මේ එක්ක අර තඹපු විදියද මොනවද කියලා මට නම් තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. රයිට් ඉස්සරහට ගිහලා බලමු. තව යන්න තියෙනවා පොඩ්ඩක් විලේජ් එකේ. මේක තමයි විලේජ් එක. මේ විලේජ් එකේ මවුරි කට්ටිය ඉන්නවා ජීවත් වෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒත් එක්කම මේක නිකන් පොඩි පාක් එකක්. රයිට් අපි බලමු. තව ගිහලා ඉස්සරහට.
This gentleman here, Maori or Kingi, he was one of our renowned orators as well as a great historian, one of our most respected kaumatua elder. He was also the gentleman when dignitaries, royalties came to the city, he took them around the city. It's just unfortunately died a little bit too soon, because when Prince Harry came to the city, the gentleman that filled in his shoes took Prince Harry to the redwoods and did not bring him to the valley. And so our people questioned him, why did you not bring him through the valley and follow the same footprints as his grandparents? He responded, I was told to take him to the redwoods. And so our mayor got reprimanded for it because she was the one who appointed him, and she should have made sure he did his research before he brought Prince Harry around the city. Now, the house behind me, there's the name of the house above the doorway, Tuhoro Matakaka, a name of a chief. This is the house of Magi Papakura, where she resided before she went to the UK. Now, in 2003, at the time when her grandson was living in the house, he actually completed the book she was writing. We are spiritual people. Before Christianity, we stated whakapapa, genealogy, and I'm talking in a spiritual sense. We still state the words. I te timatanga te kore, te pō nui, te pō roa, te pō pāmaumau. In the beginning, there was darkness. Also words scriptured in the Bible. We have two churches in the village. The Anglican Church arrived in the village after the eruption of Mount Tarawera. The survivors, when relocated to the village, bringing the Anglican Church with them. We have the Catholic Church. So the chief had to make a decision. Gathering the families, he made the announcement. Those to my right, Catholic. Those to my left, Anglican. and that's how it was sorted. So the people questioned him, what's the difference between a Catholic and an Anglican? He responded, one is English, the other one Italian, and they were happy with that. Now as we come past the cemetery, tombs are above the ground because of activity below our feet. And since we've run out of room, families who want to be next to their loved ones when they pass, that's the only option they have now. We have no other choice but to cremate them. Now all the carved statues you see throughout the village tracks, they're guardians, warning off evil spirits. Ones with weapons in their hands, they are the protectors. Ones without weapons, the guardians. Now on the wall, the painting of the pink and white terraces. To the left, the pink terraces. In the background, the white. Behind the white terraces, Mount Tarawera. In 2011, Niwa put a probe in Lake Rotomahana. They discovered 3 tiers of the white terraces, but 60 metres underwater. So what they're saying is maybe they're still intact, but we won't know unless they drain the lake. Because from the northern end of Mount Tarawera to the southern end, it's 5.5 kilometres in length. When the mountain erupted, it blew 3 domes. And then from the southern end of the mountain, the ground continued to open another 17 kilometres. Now, this carved pole is a memory of Magi Papakura. The pole is erected in such a way, if we drew a straight line from here, it'll lead us to the Northern Hemisphere in Oxford, Oddington Churchyard, where she's resting in the UK. And here we have the resting place of Gairangi, next to her husband, William, who is the son to Magi Papakura. So Rangi is William's second wife. They did not have children. It was from William's first marriage where the grandson was staying in the house and completed the book. Now the tombs going up the hill is where the village got its name. Te Whakarewarewa tanga o te ope taua awahiao. When the enemy arrived unannounced, the chief Wahiao gathering his war party, 400 to 500 warriors coming up the hill till they reached the top, performing the haka peru. So you can only imagine listening to the men stamping their feet on the ground, creating the rumbling noise. And from the stamping, the dust rising like the steam. Now this carving here, folks, represents the high priest. It's the only carving with 2 tongues. One to speak in the practical world, the other the spiritual world. So whenever you see any carvings throughout the country with 2 tongues, the high priest. Now we're coming up to the second viewing platform of the Geysers, and this is as close as we can get to them. The ladies at the profiles, including my grandmother, when they were guiding, they used to walk the whole valley. Right up until the government wanted control of the valley and village, wanted the families to move out. They said no. That's when they erected a gate at the halfway mark, and that's not the gate there, folks, it's a bit further around the corner, and separated us. Our argument, the gate should have been on their bridge. For them to access the Geysers, they need to come across the bridge. Now we've just got a couple of steps to come down when we make our way to the second viewing platform. Wharenui, big house. Wharetupuna, ancestral meeting house. Because all carved houses are named after ancestors. The name of the house, the name of the chief, the village is named after Wahiao. We liken the house to the body of an ancestor, coming down the front of the house, outstretched arms. At the end of each arm, fingers. Apex, head. The carved panels coming down the front of the house on either side, legs. Window, eye, door, mouth. Now come up a little bit closer. If you look to the ceiling, the carved figurines running across the ceiling, backbone of the ancestor. Coming down the rafters, the black and white panels, ribs. Inside, all carved houses, a central pillar, Pautoko Manawa, heart. That's why we liken the houses to the body of an ancestor. They're the heart of our culture, beliefs, genealogy. The carved panels on the outside of the house depicting genealogy. The figurine at the top, father. The figurine below, son. If there was a third figure, grandson. And that's how genealogy are told through the panels. We do have carvings of the women. They're inside the house along with the chiefs. The males are on the outside for protection. And the difference between a male-female carving, women do not protrude their tongue. They are distorted, not in an image of a man. Our people believed there was one creator. We are reflections. And that's why there's distortion in the carved panels, reminding us of the imperfections of mankind. Not until the introduction to the chisel, the steel, the styles changed. You can see that with the sentinel. You can also see the English influence, the bowler hat, compared to traditional carving. Features starting with the head to our people, most sacred part of the body, as we never had a written language. Well, written language how it's known today, folks, because the carvings were our writing, the houses were our writing, even the markings on the faces, our writing. Tā moko. So the men, they would have the full face markings, and for the women, moko kauai, the lips and the chin, representing status, genealogy, accomplishments. So when it came to genealogy, one side of the face, your father's history, other side, your mother's. Accomplishments from the eyelids down, knowledge from the eyelids up, as well as singing, dancing, our language. Next feature, facial expressions, enlarged eyes, protruding tongue, act of defiance. Before the men did battle, performing the haka, stamping their feet on the ground, slapping their legs, chest, arms, stimulating the body, as well as the facial expressions. So every muscle, including eyes and tongue, were used. Hopefully, when confronting the enemy, they take fright, turn, run, no battle would take place. So the haka, to prepare the warrior mentally, physically, spiritually for battle. Another feature, fingers, representation of mankind, birth, life, death. If there happened to be a fourth finger, the panels on the side of the house portray the fourth finger. It points in the opposite direction, life after death. We believe in the spiritual journey. Now these are meeting houses. They're not churches, they're not temples. We use them for gatherings, birthdays, weddings, anniversaries, most importantly, tangihana funerals. Because when we mourn it as a tribe and not just the family. Now when it comes to our beliefs, because we also have a version of the creation. Now as I had mentioned or made those statements in the beginning, there was darkness. From the darkness came thought, the creator. From thought came Papa Tuanuku, Mother Earth, Rangi Nui, Father Sky. In between the parents, the children, who are the elements of life. The oldest son, Tāne Mahuta, the guardian of trees and forest, wanted to separate mother and father because of the embrace. They wanted to move, breathe and allow light into the world. But there was one sibling against the separation, Tāwhiri Mātia, the guardian of wind and weather. So the oldest son placed his shoulder against his mother, feet against the father and pushed. And with the aid of all the siblings, prizing the parents apart, allowing light into the world, we acknowledge Te Ao Marama. So whenever we stand in front of the house, we can see the creation. We are all standing on Papa Tuanuku, Mother Earth. The car figurines running across the ceiling represents our husband, Ranginui, Father Sky. The pole in front of the house is the oldest son, separating mother and father. And the car panels on either side of the house are the siblings, aiding in the cause of the separation to allow light into the world. And then coming down the rafters, the black and white spiral patterns, is the anger of Tāwhiri Mātia, where he continues those battles today in cyclones, hurricanes, tornadoes. So whenever we stand in front of any meeting house, we can see the creation. The difference is the genealogy of the house. Any questions? Okay folks, we have now come to the conclusion of the journey. I hope you've enjoyed the little walk through the village. Got to experience corn cooked in the hot spring, as well as feeling the texture of the water coming from the hot spring, see some activities of the geysers, learn a little bit about us as people. It's customary in our culture when we depart company, whether it's family, friends, visitors, we leave a whakatauki, a proverb. Now in this case I will leave you a rendition of a beautiful love song. The name of that love song is called Pokarekariana. It's about two ancestors, Hinamoa, a beautiful maiden who lived on the shores of Lake Rotorua. Hinamoa and Wahiao are brother and sister. Now Hinamoa fell in love with a handsome warrior, Tūtanakai, who lived on the island Makoia, situated in the middle of our lake. But because of tribal social differences, these two were forbidden to meet. But they did and fell in love. So each evening, Tūtanakai, he would play on a putarino or a flute, and with the sound waffling across the lake, urging Hinamoa to be with him. But her father found out, so he hauled all canoes up on land. But she was a resourceful woman, finding calabashes, tying them around her waistline in the middle of the night, guided by the sound of the putarino, made her way to Makoia Island. As a result, myself and many families are direct descendants of Hinamoa and Tūtanakai. And the people in the village here, they are my first cousins. Now we have a different version of the song that gets sung to our visitors because of being descendants of Hinamoa and Tūtanakai. Tēnei te paki waitara, o te puhi rongo nui e, hine moa, hine moa, o te arawa e, takahia ki rotorua, kaua e huri ke, ka huri mai ki Makoia, ia kuringa e, whiti ki taua e hine, kia kore taua e, hine moa, hine moa, o te arawa e. He pātai mōku, he aha te me nui o te ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. If I ask what's the most precious thing in life, it is people, it is people, it is people. Nō reiranga manuhiri tuarangi, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, ngā mihi ki a koutou. Now,
right, එහෙනම් ඒ trip එක ගත්ත ඉවරයි. Whakarewarewa thermal village ඒක නම් ෂොක් එක්ස්පීරියන්ස් එක. ඉතින් අතරම කිව්වොත් ඒ තර්මල් ඒරියා එකේ Maori මේ කට්ටිය ජීවත් වෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒ ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ලයිෆ් ස්ටයිල් එක ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ඒ තර්මල් මේකත් එක්ක තමයි ඒගොල්ලන් ජීවත් වෙන්නේ. ඉතින් ඒගොල්ලන් ගොඩක්ම පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ ඒ කිව්ව විදිහට ඒ එන තර්මල් මේ වලින් එන වතුර, උණු වතුර උදේට නාන ඒවා, කෑම බොයිල් කරන ඒවා. ඉතින් ඒගොල්ලන්ට ගොඩක් වෙලාවට මේ අපි වගේ ගෑස් වලට ඒවා කිසි දෙයක් ඕනේ නැහැ. ඒගොල්ලන් ඒකෙන්ම තමයි ඒ තියෙන තර්මල් මේකෙන්ම තමයි ඒගොල්ලන් උයන්නේ, නාන්නේ, හැමදේම කරන්නේ. උයනවා කියන්නේ මේ වතුර පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක අර එන ජෙනරේට් වෙන ස්ටීම් එකෙන් තමයි දැන් මේවා කරන්නේ. දැන් අර කෝන් කෑවා වගේ. ඉතින් ඒ වගේම ඒගොල්ලන් අර එන වාෂ්ප වලින් තමයි ඒගොල්ලන් අර මස් එහෙම වුණත් මේවා කළා ගන්නෙ, තම්බලා ගන්නෙ. ඔයා කියනවා ඒ තියෙන රස්නෙට මස් එහෙම නිකම්ම ගැලවිලා එනවලු. ඉතින් ඒක ඉතින් වෙනම එක්ස්පීරියන්ස් එකක්. ඇත්තටම කිව්වොත් ඉතින් ෂොක්. ඔයගොල්ලෝ තෙන්ඩ මේ බෑකේ මේ දෙකක් තියෙන. එකක් තියෙනවා Maori village tour එකයි ඒත් එක්කම thermal මේකයි. මම මේ දෙකම ගත්තේ කොම්බෝ එක. 50 ගාණක් වගේ වුණා. 53ක්ද කොහෙද වුණා. ඒක උනට පාඩු නෑ. රයිට් එහෙනම් ඉතින් ඉවරයි රොටුර බලන්න තියෙන තැන්. තව එක තැනක් තියෙනවා. බලමු එතනට ගිහිලා කොහොමද කියලා යන්න පුළුවන් වේද කියලා. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඉතින් එහෙමම යනවා ගෙදර. මොකද අද සිකුරාදා නිසා මග දිගට ට්‍රැෆික් උත් තියෙයි. රයිට් එහෙනම් බලමු. එහෙනම් ගිහලා ඉස්සරහ. ජය වේවා. එහෙනම් ඉතින් රොටුර ට්‍රිප් එකත් ඉවරයි. ඉතින් යන්න තමයි තියෙන ගෙදර. දාලා යන්න හිතෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඉන්නම තමයි හිතේ. හරි සනීප.